then I finally was like, I have to ask. I just have to say, I have this thing. And then so the next month I did it. The newsletter was just that. And I got responses right away. And I think I sold two. And I did say I can comfortably accept 3 new clients right now. And like those got booked right away.
Wow.
And then there were
for the SOS plan.
Yeah. Because I also I wanted to see how it would go. And I think I also had some personal fears of like, oh my God, I'm going to get bombarded with all this stuff. And it's been fine. And then I had several that said, I'm not ready for this, but can we talk again in a couple months? And I said, sure, no problem. And that's even better because I want to make sure I'm able to deliver value on this offer. So it was pretty much that. And I mean, that's not a huge list. That list is 35 people.
Welcome to the Web Design Business Podcast with your host, Josh Hall, helping you build a web design business that gives you freedom and a lifestyle you love.
Hello, friends. Great to be with you here for another episode of the Web Design Business Podcast. We're really going to talk business today, the business of website care plans for non-WordPress sites. So I started using WordPress back in 2012, and it was my assumption as other page builders and other platforms came online that you could not have website care plans and maintenance plans and hosting plans because things like SquareSpace, Wix, Webflow, etc. were self-hosted and didn't need plugin updates, didn't need security, and didn't need what you would typically offer in a classic maintenance plan for WordPress sites. However, I was wrong. And if you have that mindset now, I'm real excited to share this episode because I am bringing on Eleanor Mayrhofer. She does have a German last name, so I hope I got that close, who is a member of mine in Web Designer Pro, and she is a SquareSpace web designer. And more recently, because every week in Pro, if you didn't know, we do weekly coaching calls, and she had a question about how she could build more recurring income in her business, apart from the marketing plans that she's doing. She was really interested in having some sort of support plan or care plan, but she uses SquareSpace. And what we came up with is and I'm going to give her 50% credit on this because we really did come up with this together. We came up with an SOS plan, which stands for strategy, optimization, and support. Eleanor, as you'll hear in this interview here, launched this to her clients and overnight generated a few $100s of recurring income with one email to a very small pool of current clients. So this is just the beginning. You can absolutely offer care plans and support plans, even if you're not a WordPress web designer. So if you're interested in building recurring income with a care plan, this is your episode. We're going to cover how she sold this and how she launched it to her clients, what she includes in her SOS plan, how she is building an SOS plan that's more support alongside her growth and marketing plans, and most importantly, why she's very happy about going slow and steady with this because she wants to make sure that she's protecting her time. So all that is covered and more. Eleanor is just an awesome web design entrepreneur. I really think you're going to love this episode. I was so excited to get this live. I featured her recently on my newsletter, and she agreed to come on the podcast and open up with exactly how she's doing this. So my friends, I hope you enjoy this. If you're not a WordPress user and you are going to build your own SOS plan, let us know. Go to the comments for this episode or the show notes for this episode. Go to joshhall.co/331. You can drop us a comment there. And if you would like to see her SOS plan, you can do that by going to her website, which is going to be linked at the show notes. Her website is her name, Eleanor Mayrhofer.com, which again will be linked in the show notes at joshhall.co/331. All right, here's Eleanor. Let's talk about how to craft your own SOS plan. Eleanor, it is so good to talk with you. It's been a while. Welcome in. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
It's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me.
I don't even know where to start with this because you have such an interesting backstory and setup for your business. You have a unique podcast. It's interesting because I'm a WordPress guy and I've known so many web designers in that world, but I feel like particularly this podcast has opened me up to web designers and of other platforms like Squarespace. So when you came into Web Designer Pro and you were, I think you were one of the first Squarespace users there. There's a lot now. We have, as you know, it's very agnostic. We have all sorts of builders in there. But it's just really cool to see a different part of the industry. So I want to just say thank you for being a Squarespace user, but still being in my world. It's very cool for me to see another side of this.
Oh, I was really glad to be welcomed with open arms because I was a little worried at first.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to make that very clear that some of my courses are WordPress. There's WordPress in there. I mean, 90% of everything is applicable to any builder. So
right.
Trying to make that more prominent, but
that was clear from the beginning. It was a non-issue.
Okay, cool. That's good for me to know. And this is very important for this topic we're going to dive into because for years, I always just kind of assumed, and as a lot of other people did, I think maybe you did as well, that you couldn't have a maintenance plan or a support plan if you don't use WordPress because you don't need to update plugins. But you and we broke the mold. I'm sure we're not the first people ever to do this, but we had on one of our coaching calls in Pro, we came up with this slick strategy, and I know we'll dive into that. But what was your thinking towards that? Did you have that same mindset?
Well, I knew what I was seeing was a lot of my clients were launching their websites, but there was a whole other marketing piece that it was sort of like we do the launch and then it was like, and surprise, you're a digital marketer now. And some of them had some knowledge and sophistication around those things, but many of them didn't. And I was working with anything from health practitioners to magicians to coaches. And, some of them were pretty good with SEO type stuff. Some of them SEO didn't really apply to their businesses. And, I try and explain some things like, okay, we're going to put your site on Google Console, but I could see that they were going to be lost after, that this was kind of step one. It wasn't the thing that was going to get the leads coming in. It will help with that process, but that's not the thing. And so then I'd kind of say, well, then just do this. And maybe you should think about LinkedIn. And then I'd go through this laundry list and they'd look like a deer in the headlights.
Yeah. Well, you said it. Websites kind of are the step one. And then as you very well articulated, clients want to know, now what do I do?
Yeah.
Which is really cool for web designers because I've been saying for a while now, all roads lead towards websites, which means it can be a starting point, but it can also be sold in addition to other services for those who have a focus on marketing. How are you positioning yourself with your copy and with your clients? And I'd love to dive into your niche too, but how are you positioning yourself? Do you come across as a web designer or a digital marketer or a strategist? How are you presenting?
Well, I'm kind of in the middle of the very beginning of, I've always wanted, I just listened to your episode with Troy Dean, and I've always thought of myself as a digital strategist, but your response to him encapsulated if I tell people I'm a digital strategist, they'll go, huh, what? So it's just easier to say I'm a web designer because people get what that is. But I've always had a kind of offer called a digital strategy session. And sometimes if a lead will come to me and I can tell they kind of don't know what they need, I'd say, well, why don't you just book this? It's like $200. It's not a lot. And then, maybe a site is what they need. A lot of times it is, but there's a whole other piece around that. But the support that I'm offering afterwards, I only do it for existing clients. And the way I'll tell you how it started. I had one client. I've done 3 sites for her. She's one of my favorite clients. And she had a very specific niche, a very specific offer, was very clear on who it was. And she knew she needed to go on LinkedIn. That was where her ideal client was. And that's my main social media platform. And so it was kind of one of those things. She booked an intensive with me and we were doing the things and she was like, this is too much. I can't even deal with this, basically. And I said, well, what would work for you? So it was kind of a collaboration. And she said, I can spend 1 hour and I want to have accountability calls. I want to come up with a list of everything I need to do. And we can work through that list together. So I said, okay. And we'll work on a monthly basis. So I kind of let that be my frame for it. And then I just thought about all of the things that some of the customers I really enjoyed working with came back for or had questions around. And it sort of fell into several buckets. And like in her case, she was a perfect candidate for SEO. And so I put her on my SEO tool and we're working on, some terms and all that stuff. For others, it's not. And this is what's a little bit interesting about this. It's still evolving and I have good relations with my clients, so I can be frank about that. But some are starting their businesses and they are very focused on lead generation, and others are like busy. They sell into organizations. They are not like, revenue is not an issue. It's more they need a sparring partner for their marketing and messaging. And it's more strategic work. And I love that kind of work. One client I'm working with now, we're just like trying to distill all the things she does into a few key messages. And there's probably a website redesign in the future somewhere, but she just needs to get all this stuff figured out before she takes that plunge.
I want to dive into these buckets because this will be parallel to what we've come up with, this SOS strategy of strategy, care, and support, or optimization support. But it makes sense that you are paying really good attention to the common questions that your clients are coming back to you with. I also love that you said you start out as a web designer. I still think it's the best way to go because people don't know strategists. But if you start with websites, like you said, naturally, they're like, okay, now what do we do? And there's your time to upsell for strategy. I personally love that. That's the kind of way I would, if I were starting today, I would still go about it that way. So let's just dive right into this strategy that you and I came up with. I'm trying to remember when we did that call, but you had talked about maintenance plans for SquareSpace and others. And there's no plugins to update, and you don't update SquareSpace, but there are a lot of other things you can do to optimize, to support. And as you've already mentioned, there's a lot of strategy opportunities for web designers with SEO, with marketing, with copy, with all these different buckets. So who should take credit for this, Eleanor? Was it you or me? I think we should split this 50-50.
It was a joint effort. Yeah.
It was a joint effort.
Joint effort. Yeah.
So tell us real quick about what you've done. I mean, you've made this your own, but tell us about your SOS strategy and how that's gone.
So what I did was, I really should pull up the site now, but what I did was I basically came up with 3 tiers. And some clients also need things like I'll have helped them set up Squarespace has their own newsletter tool. And for most of my clients, that's perfectly fine to use. But then they'll get stuck with, I need to set up a template and an automation flow. And that's just a little bit beyond their capacity. And I was offering just short intensives, like 90 minutes or a half day or a full day. And sometimes what they needed did not fit neatly into that. So part of the support optimization strategy thing was like, you can come to me for anything in these buckets. We can work on your marketing strategy. We can work on your SEO. I can help you. I'm not a bad copywriter. I can help you with things like copywriting and like these bigger strategy items I was talking about. And for your existing site in each tier, you get an automatic, half hour, 2 hours of fixes, anything that goes back to the website. So almost any help you need, with the exception of launching a new site, you will be first in line. Lots of times clients would send me an email and they'd need something to take half an hour. And it's like, what do I do with that? I don't want to say well, you got to book a full session. And these are clients I have good relationships with. So if they have this SOS plan, that falls into it, no problem. And I also respond, because if they're not on the plan, it's like, I'll do my best to respond, but I can't promise. I got a husband, a dog, a kid, a business. I can't be answering every email after your support. Yeah. Launch support is over.
And they would be at a higher hourly rate too, right? You do.
Yeah. And then it's a use it or lose it. And once if they use the maximum of the hours, it just rolls into an hourly.
Gotcha.
So it's a better way to work together. It feels more comfortable with clients you have a good relationship with.
Well, that's a really good point too. It was one of the reasons I loved having my maintenance plan. It was I was taking all these random requests. I was like, I might as well get paid for it in a way that makes it easier for clients too, because they just know I'm in their corner. And if it's a quick update, they have a new team member, I can throw it up there because they're paying for an hour a month. But if they don't use it, all good. And most clients did not care about that. I was really worried about clients being worried about paying for an hour of time that they're not going to use. But if you stack in a maintenance plan or support plan with all these other benefits, that 1 hour is viewed as a bonus, as a perk. It's not what they think they're paying for.
Yeah. That has been a non-issue so far.
I love what you have done with your plan in the way of having it tiered out too. So for those, what we're going to do is I'm going to make sure I'm actually going to follow up with this podcast with a more condensed video to show this on YouTube. But for everyone just listening, your plan is called SOS, Support Optimization Strategy. I would actually probably lead with strategy as I'm looking at it. I would say,
I'm thinking about reversing.
The only reason is just because I feel like if you lead with that, it would probably seem more valuable. Whereas right now, I mean, it works either way, but either way, strategy, optimization, support, SOS, you're including priority support with a discounted hourly rate, online marketing, copy and messaging services, SEO monitoring, reporting, website enhancements, and it's tiered out. So you have a basic, premium, and elite plan. And for everyone who checks out the page, I'll make sure we have the page linked in the show notes for this one. But I'm just kind of overviewing your plan and your tiers of what's working, because it is nice to have like clients who are not going to need much. They can do the basic. It's €149 premium. Right now you're at $249 and $449 for elite. So I want to know, you laid this out. What you had delayed a couple months, I think it was, and doing this was so funny because in pro you were like, I finally did it, and my gosh, it worked like overnight. So tell us about launching this. I'd love to hear, now that we've covered what you include and how you go about it, I would love to hear about how you launched this to current clients.
Yeah, I think there were some mindset issues. So I did it. And then I think I have a mailing list just for clients. And I send maybe every couple months, just a little hi, hello, tips, stuff, just kind of staying in touch. And so the January one, I had a podcast episode I shared that was relevant to all my clients. And I did the PS. I have this thing like way at the bottom, and I don't think it even got any clicks and then I finally was like, I have to ask. I just have to say, I have this thing. And then so the next month I did it. The newsletter was just that. And I got responses right away. And I think I sold two, and I did say I can comfortably accept 3 new clients right now. And like those got booked right away.
Wow.
And then
for the SOS plan.
Yeah. Cause I also I wanted to see how it would go. And I think I also had some personal fears of like, oh my God, I'm going to get bombarded with all this stuff. And it's been fine. And then I had several that said, I'm not ready for this, but can we talk again in a couple months? And I said, sure, no problem. And that's even better because I want to make sure I'm able to deliver value on this offer. So it was pretty much that. And I mean, that's not a huge list. That list is 35 people.
Awesome. Yeah, it's almost better to start with just a handful or even less in the beginning with this kind of thing, because it's direct support. Whereas if you get 30 people signing up for something, you might be scrambling. So you onboarded a few that first step. How did the initial wave go? You said you were worried about getting constant, bombardment, but it sounds like that's not the case. So how did the first round of your SOS plan go?
Well, one thing I realized after starting was we really need to, and I need to put this on the sales page, but we really need to start with a complimentary, because I also have quarterly strategy calls at different levels. So like you get 2, I think in elite, and 1 in premium. But I think these offers all need to start with a strategy call, because it's sort of like, what are we doing here? And like, let's set some KPIs. And so I just did that, and on the house. And then because I have, my clients are great, I was also redoing my CRM at the time, which I don't recommend doing this at the same time you do that. So it wasn't like until a month in that I had all my client portals set up and everything nice where I could do things. So I was kind of like building the plane as I was flying in a little bit from like a back end perspective. But I mean, there wasn't really much to it. I set up the sales page and I sent that email. And then now what I have in my CRM is on each client portal, they have links to, I have special meeting types set up. And the portal, I have like if we have sessions and I take notes, I record them all with like an AI note taker. And so I always, they can always find their notes in the portal and book a call. I thought at first, I want to make this as streamlined as possible. So I didn't like go set up some kind of ticketing system or anything like that. I thought if it gets to like that kind of volume, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But for now, it was like, if you have anything, you can just send me an email. And even that hasn't really happened. I mean, I get a couple of things, but it wasn't just like my fear of just never ending email requests to do little things on a website.
Yeah. I don't know if you were on the recent Call on Pro. We were talking about that because we do have some members who have 50 plus websites they're managing. And then once you get to that point, a little more of a streamlined ticketing system is a great way to go. You don't want to lose the personal touch, but like my CEO, Eric, he just has everyone send something to support at In Transit Studios. Please, nobody, don't send stuff to that email because it's going to get flagged and Zapier, then it goes to the team. So, but that's how he does it. But yeah, if you're dealing with a dozen or 24 clients, generally it's not a big issue. How many are on the plan today then, just for our reference?
4.
Okay. Yeah. So I feel like as you double that and triple that, that'll be a good telling sign once you get to like a dozen and up to the 20 range, whether that would need to change. But you're right, especially since you already have a really good relationship with your clients. If anything, it's just a good chance to reignite your relationship with your clients because if you have something new, that shows that you're innovating. And that shows that you're working on your business and you're providing more value. That is a bit of a hidden gem that most web designers don't think about. If you don't offer anything new ever for years, you're going to look stagnant.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean you need to blow up your business. But if you do have a value add, launch it, make it special, do a big announcement post and something like this. I mean, overnight, you made a few $100 overnight in recurring off of one email. So I think it's cool to see you do this. And then because you didn't know what to expect. But if you do offer it, it can be very, very cool. Now, with starting with a handful of people and stuff, I'm kind of curious. You haven't been an issue with getting requests and things like that. But one thing I do want to highlight what you said there is to do an onboarding call. I think that is absolutely crucial for this because you could really highlight the strategy. And that way, I mean, one onboarding call, yes, it might take some time with a few clients, but that's probably worth maybe tens of thousands of dollars years down the road. I mean, that's pretty cool. When you did those strategy calls, or those onboarding calls, we'll call them. Did you have any agenda with those? Or was it just casual, just kind of catch up and talk about where they're at and what the questions they have?
Well, one thing I really want to do is establish like, what are the goals? What do you want to do out of this so that they're getting value out of it? And, like it's very concrete. It's like, I want 1 to 2 new clients a month because otherwise I don't really know how I can help them. So it's like, okay, that's clear. This is what I think we should do to help meet the goals. And with another person, it was like, I want to speak on these certain stages this time next year. So it was like, okay, it's going to be messaging, content, like let's do that and that. So it's kind of different. So just kind of setting the stage for what the work's going to look like. And to the point about like, you say it all the time, and it is true. It's like it always leads back to the website. So one client who started a coaching practice, she does, want a healthy clip of clients, but she wants to do a lot of content marketing. And she said, okay, I want to do the newsletter now. And then I said, okay. And we talked about it and realized like she kind of needs to think through more like what her automation process is going to be. And then when it came to SquareSpace campaigns, I was like, there's got to be a course. But then I realized, wait a minute. You're on my plan. Like book an extra hour and we'll set it up. And that's way cheaper than you going through a course and do it. And that's like the benefit for them. It's like, I can just, when we get to that point where we have to get our hands into the website again, I can help you with that.
Yeah.
So
No, that makes a lot of sense. It's going to open up the doors to all these additional services. But that leads me to a fear-based question, which is, how do you put constraints on what you do outside of website and support? I mean, when you talk SEO, marketing, lead generators, that can get into very, very complex digital marketing territory. Because I imagine they may be like, Eleanor, would you take my social media over too? Where do you draw the line, and how do you put a cap on those marketing services?
I think that's where it's like, it's not implementation. Like I am not going, like I have another offer that's like a very expensive monthly retainer where there's actual help with the content and
So it's more of
scheduling it out.
done
So
for
I do
you or
have
done with you.
yeah, I do have, if you go to my website, I have like website packages and digital strategy services. And the premium one is like a 4-figure monthly retainer. That is not what this is. So, and like what comes up a lot is like people want me to help them set up their Gmail. And that's when I'm like, I am not an IT person. My husband does that for me. Like, can't help you with that. So I just tell people like, this is kind of out of the purview and I'm not good at it. So
do you get any people confused? Because I'm looking now. Yeah, this is great. You have a digital marketing packages that include strategy, roadmap, like digital roadmap, and then full blown digital marketing services, a little more support and implementation. Have those conflicted with your SOS plans? Because I imagine some clients might be confused. Well, if you're already doing I'm already on your strategy plan, what's the difference between a roadmap? Is that the clarity, the difference, just the amount of time that you're actually doing things for them?
You know, a lot of them just don't even know about that. Once they're your client, they're not really going back to your site. And those are more, the first two digital strategy services would be something that somebody would use before we did a site together.
Okay.
And then if they want something more robust, I can point them to the digital services. And usually sometimes that with clients, and I've talked to them. I'm not like doing that for anybody, but sometimes they've had me and I've literally written things up in Notion, like where we've talked about, and I've been like, this is what it would look like in your case. So that's sort of a placeholder there if somebody wants it, but it's not something. And those two, all of this and the SOS, I have had to have done a website with you first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like none of it's anything you could book, just standalone.
It's interesting because you mentioned my conversation with Troy Dean recently about growth plans, and really what you have in place is a great example of that with your roadmap and then digital marketing services. If you were to sell one of those today, if somebody did your roadmap or your full blown top tier, $2,000 a month digital marketing services, would you include SOS as a bonus? Like just that would be like the foundation, strategy, support, and care? Or would somebody purchase that separately?
It depends because, I mean, I can't imagine a situation, but if they got the roadmap and then somehow part of that was not a website, it wouldn't really make sense.
Okay.
But
I was just thinking your SOS plans could be a great downsell too. Like if somebody is doing your roadmap or your top tier marketing services and they're like, hey, we want to pause this. You could still say, well, we could still do the fundamentals with our SOS plan. That way you and I can at least get together quarterly. And we could do your basic support for, a couple $100 a month or something. It could be a nice little downsell.
I am experimenting with this a little bit. I'm in talks with one person who had a proposal who I think had a little sticker shock or just like got cold feet, and the business is still kind of coming together. And so we're going to talk again, and I'm going to say, well, maybe we do a slimmed down version and then you get on a plan and we can do things incrementally. And to be perfectly honest, I'm not exactly what that would look like, but I'm glad I have that there.
Yeah.
Because
it's a great starting point too. Yeah. Cause you could start someone on your top tier of your SOS plan to have, the strategy and the goals moving forward. And then they could work up towards the actual roadmap and your marketing services, even when they're ready.
What I don't want, that I guess the thing I'm concerned or would be concerned about, like I don't want somebody to try and use that as a backdoor to do a new site.
Oh, yes.
Like I have to be very clear about that. Like you're not going to get a site like on an hourly rate. Like you have to have a site build first for financial reasons. But also I don't want people in my inbox that I don't want being there. That's like part of the freedom thing of being an entrepreneur. So doing a website together, I know like, okay, I like this person. We work well together. We're enriching each other's lives and great. Happy to have them there. But you kind of know after one site build, if it's like,
Yeah.
Good luck.
Right. And that's important too, because you wouldn't necessarily want to have like at scale, a bunch of clients on an SOS plan that you really don't want to work with. So I think that's an important distinction here, because for anyone who might be thinking like, well, I wouldn't want to do an SOS plan unless I had, 20 or 30 or 40 clients. The thing is, in your case, Eleanor, it's almost just a bonus to your clients in your business as of now. Eventually I could see it being a pretty big piece and core to your business, especially being that it's recurring. But you're an established web design business owner at this point. So it was kind of a nice add-on, an additional piece to what you're offering. But again, the cool thing is I feel like clients just slip away if they don't have that option, because prior to your SOS plans, you really had the option to do website or one of these advanced marketing services. Otherwise, it's like, see you later. You can stay on my list.
Yeah.
You don't really have anything for them. So that's I think it's really cool. I feel like this, to me, on the outside looking in, it looks like this fills in that nice little gap to keep people in your world. And you have that offer to continue to roll out every time you do a newsletter. I mean, it can, you did that one that was highlighting it, but it can always be a part of your offer suite moving forward.
Yeah. And I think I will hold off until the end of the summer to kind of push it again. And I'll reach out. I actually raised the price. Because the person who bought like the Elite was like, this is very reasonable. So I was like, oh, okay. Good to know. But the people that I talked to I will honor the original rate that I talked to. So I'll do that with them. And, another thing about this is it is win-win, because it gives me real insight into my clients' business problems. And that helps me think about my business and my offering. So it goes both ways. I get a lot of information about their struggles, their challenges, all kinds of things. So I actually do find it really gratifying work. And I like to think of, I like to be like a partner for my clients. So it's just, I think the trick is figuring out how much of the work is like thinking work. And I don't want it to turn into just too much like order taking and job ticket work. I want it to kind of stay at that strategic level. And I think the way you've done it is wise, because you have a smaller pool of clients to test that out on. Again, if you had 30 clients sign up, that's dangerous territory when it's one-on-one kind of work. But you are mixing in task taking and strategy and bigger vision thoughts. So I think you're doing a really good job. And I think it's cool that you've gone slow with it and you just have a handful of clients right now. Out of curiosity, between your 3 tiers, I know you only have a handful of clients, but are most of them on the basic tier? You have the one on the Elite. Where do they fall within your tiers? Spread all across. Okay. It would be fascinating once you get up to like 20 or 30 people to see if that continues. Just full transparency. We could do some on air coaching. I don't know if I could do that because that's why I'm kind of going slow, because I have a couple of, I was really doing a lot of like productized service launch in a day. And now I'm kind of getting more custom projects, and they're not like turn and burn. So I'm pacing myself because I'm not sure how a bunch of calls, like, I just don't know what that's going to look like. And I get nervous about how that will affect my delivery work. So I've got to just weigh the balance there. Yeah. I think the quarterly call thing, how timely. I just talked to Lisa Williams, who is kind of the queen of quarterly calls. We did that recent training in pro about that. And I know you're doing that as well. Yeah. That's where that can be a lifesaver, just to have like once a quarter, you open up a window of calls, and that way all your clients get that access. That way you're not doing that weekly and every month. Otherwise that can be dangerous and that can be very draining. So yeah, I think you're probably pretty close to the point where it's already getting to like constraints and figuring out how you can siphon certain call days and seasons of calls over a 10-day period or something. Yeah. But yeah, to your point, I mean, I personally, as your coach, I would say
your handful of clients, make it work really well. And it's kind of cool that they're all on their own tiers. That way you can kind of figure out what's working here and what's working there. Because eventually maybe you even have just one tier of an SEO, or maybe just two. Maybe there's just a basic and then the elite, which will then lead into the roadmap and stuff. And again, I just think it would be a great initial offer and a downsell eventually too, for those who want to leave the roadmap and your marketing services.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So I really think they marry, well nicely together, but it seems like you're kind of in a point with your business too, where you're not pivoting, it looks like, but it seems like you're just rearranging your offers. Am I?
Right? That's a better way to put it. Yeah. How would you, can I just ask you, like, when you say a downsell, like, how would you imagine that working?
So if somebody was on your elite plan for $2,000 a month, and then they're like, Eleanor, it's been great, but we're just going to take a pause. We're changing some things. I would just say, no problem. Totally understand. What we can do is, we have our SOS plan, which we're doing complimentary for you, what you're doing right now. It's only, a few $100 a month. And that way I can at least stay, I can stay as your support person month to month, and we'll still have a quarterly strategy call. So I'll be able to do this month to month. Any changes you need, we're going to optimize the website. I'll support you, and you'll have a lot of time. And then in a few months, we'll have our strategy call, and we can reconvene in 3 months, and then maybe that's the time to sell up.
Right. I see, like downsell from the full retainer marketing services. Right.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Because otherwise, it's just boom. There's $2,000 a month gone. But this is a nice, that might suck, but at least you have an option for like $300 a month that they can pay on, or whatever tier they choose.
Yeah.
So, I think that would be a perfect, downsell opportunity. And you would just say, like, this is kind of the fundamentals of what we're doing. It's the baseline, and we can at least keep that going with the angle that you're still in their corner month to month with their website and web design.
Right.
They don't need you as much over this next season, but they could at least have you. When they need you.
I think the interesting thing about this is a lot of the clients I work for, there is a section, a sub bucket of them that it's like they need agency services, but most agency services start at a few $1,000 a month, and there's nobody. Like, I'm trying to fill the sweet spot between like somebody who doesn't want to like go on Upwork or Fiverr and also just offering those services for clients because they really don't have they don't want to manage a bunch of freelancers. And this is another kind of secret good thing about this service. So like one client, she was working with a copywriter, and she has a VA, but everything can come through me. Like, I can send stuff to her VA. I can take the copy, I can put it on the website. I can help her with her copy. Like, she doesn't have to manage all these people and say, okay, now I've got to take this and trot it over to my web designer and do this. Like, you can have like umbrella services at this level that work for that, like, small businesses.
And side note, you're going to be doing that anyway. So you might as well get paid for it, regardless. For anyone who's like, well, I don't want to be the middleman and mediator. It's like, you're going to have to talk with, if there's other cooks in the kitchen, you're going to have to interact with them, or you're going to have to do it by way of the client, which is going to take triple as long. If you have to tell your client, hey, can you tell your copywriter to do this and send it back to you and send it back to me? Like, I know that gets tricky, but you're going to be doing it regardless. If there's a lot of other people working on it.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you think you're going to push it quite a bit moving forward? Are you just going to kind of ease it in there as needed? Or again, I know you don't want to take a flood of clients on this, but I'm just kind of curious now that you've had a few months with it. What's the plan moving forward?
I enjoy the work, and I want to keep it up. And, no joke, it's nice to see like, oh, look at that monthly revenue just like coming in. So that's nice, obviously. And I do like the work, and I would like to have more of it. It's really just figuring out my capacity, because a lot of this work is not something I can pass off to somebody else. So, for the first time, I'm thinking about like what it would look like to bring someone on to help with some other tasks. And I'm going to be checking out Scale Your Way in the community. You always got something when I need it. So that's great. So it's really just going to be like, what can I do? Because even if at this price point, I would have to have quite a few clients to like just do that exclusively. So I just have to figure out what that would look like. But right now I definitely want to do more of it. I really like it.
And that makes sense too. As a WordPress guy, like it's pretty easy to get somebody to do more like junior level tasks when it comes to updating plugins and basic content updates. But the fact that you're mixing in strategy, I guess what you would probably do is, and one thing that I teach in the scaling course, Scale Your Way, which is what I'll reiterate here, is with this service, strategy, optimization, and support, I would almost treat those as separate jobs and look at, for sure, you're going to be doing strategy. So you're not going to be able to hire anyone to do that. But you could get help with optimization and support. So when it comes to support, that may be updating the website, that kind of thing. Even if you're a mediator, you could forward those tasks on if it's updating website pages, staff, stuff like that. If it is optimization, that's where I would come up with like some pretty rigid constraints on like, these are the type of optimization things we do, whether it's alt text on images, speed, accessibility, things that you're doing on websites, that kind of thing. That's kind of how I would treat that and look at like what areas, and now that you have a few months, I would take the next few months with these plans and see what you're doing that's repetitive, that you're like, okay, I can stop doing this. I could absolutely get somebody else to do this. I would kind of take note of that. And I think that's how you'll be able to hire on, get some additional help with your SOS plans. Cause you don't want it to be a time suck if it does become that.
There hasn't been a lot of that though. There really just hasn't been. I mean, part of it's because it's Squarespace, but like the optimization, the one client that has the SEO stuff, but that's really about like adding content. So, and with hosted platforms, which is fine with me. I'm not like particularly interested in doing that kind of stuff. It's more like add-on work. And that's where I think I could potentially, like, okay, we're building a sales page or whatever. And that's where I could.
I would almost, coaching time, but I would say as you're doing these add-ons like sales pages, lead generators, I imagine you have some templates that you base it off of. I would even take it to the next step with almost creating, like, if someone wants a landing page or a lead generator, you give them like 2 different templates to choose from. And you can say, these are the 2 that I roll with. They work really well. Which one would work for you? And maybe you could customize it from there. But I almost feel like this next phase of your business, it's probably a matter of refining and consolidating what you've been doing and getting out of, because I'm sure even your custom stuff, you're probably doing stuff that's pretty similar or slightly repetitive. So my challenge for you, Eleanor, the next little while here would be what can you streamline and standardize based off of what works and that a lot of your clients have done. I think that'll help to reduce your bandwidth and making sure you stay sustainable.
For sure. Even though it is the Squarespace world, there is an ecosystem around like tools, and there's some where you can move modules between the sites that you manage and stuff. So I've actually been experimenting with that a little bit, because you can always just move stuff over from another site or a master template and then, style it for the site. So you're totally right. It's going to be more of that kind of stuff, figuring out automations.
And that would go for all of your services, your SOS plans, your website builds, and your marketing services. Because really, as you know, the framework that I recommend that all web designers have is build, support, grow. And while you don't say that clear, like you don't state that exactly, your services are exactly that. You build websites, you support them with your SOS plans, and you grow with your marketing services. So you're a shining example of how to do it, but you're also a good example of like, once you get to this point, now the question turns to, how do I make this sustainable and profitable and not stretch myself too thin or become a huge agency owner? So, I mean, we've covered a lot of tips that I think will help that. Obviously, now it's kind of getting the work boots on and putting some of these really just constraints in place. And the thing is, even for custom, like I know clients like to customize things, but if you come across with a lead generator and say like, this is the path that I have set up, it's a proven path, it works, these tools, these templates, if you wanted to customize things, we could at a much higher hourly rate, but this is what works. So it's kind of cool. You have the freedom at your level, knowing what has worked for other clients, to be able to use that on others. One thing you said earlier too, I didn't want to skip over this. It's like, if you have a core group of really good clients, everything you learn with them and implement with them can trickle down to all of your other clients, which, if anyone is curious, that is like the main reason I started Web Designer Pro. I wanted to have a much closer eye on and community with really good web designers who I was able to learn from as well. And everything we're learning in Web Designer Pro through DMs and our coaching calls is trickling down to the whole community and out to this podcast and on my YouTube channel. It's kind of the same way. Like what I do with Pro is much the same way, is learning from, a smaller pool of web designers, and then that trickles out to everybody.
Yeah. And I will just echo that and say that Pro is so wonderful. Everybody should sign up and join. It's so great. It is a really nice bunch of people. And, I dip in and out, but like with this, I was like, I need to have like some sort of add-on services, and I can just jump in and there is the resource there. I can go to exactly what I need. And I found it and I was like, I want a little more help with this, and got on the hot seat. And just yesterday, I have another idea, bright, shiny object, like all entrepreneurs. It has to do with the directory. Actually, it'd probably be a WordPress thing. And I was like, let me go into Pro. And I just not Googled it, put it in the search, and met up with Rosie, who's in the UK. We had a great talk, just good community, really, and you never know the collabs that can happen. We had a great exchange, and I was just so grateful. Like, I'll go every quarter through things like, what could I cut? Is there bloat? And I'm like, not cutting that.
Oh, that is amazing, Eleanor. There may be no better compliment than somebody saying, this is the one thing that I am not stopping. That's so great to hear. And that's what's cool for me too. Like, there are members who are there almost every day and they're super engaged. There's also those who come in when and if needed. And I realize too, like somebody like yourself, you're busy running your business. I don't expect to see you in Pro every day, but it's there when you need it. And like right now in this next season of your business, you're looking to scale your way. So I'm like, here we go. Or it's ready for you when you can plan it out and take a couple weeks, go through it, implement it, and then that'll set you on for the next few months. It's kind of like what you're doing with strategy calls and staying in top of mind with clients. It's like, it's always there when you need it. And then there's some points where you're going to be really active and really engaged. And that's what's cool. Like, so anyway, I appreciate hearing that. That really, it reaffirms what's in place. And anytime I'm like, do I need to change some things up or tweak things? It's like, no, this is working really well for everybody.
It really is.
Protect that and keep it going. Yeah,
it really is. It really is.
Oh, that's so great. And same thing for your clients. I mean, that's kind of, as we kind of wrap this up here, I think for everyone who is offering support, strategy, care, it's like whatever is working for your client, double down on that and make a package out of that. And that will trickle down to everybody else. So I'm really curious. I'm excited to see how these SOS plans continue to work in your ecosystem of your business over the next few months. Because again, I think you really found a sweet spot. I know you just have a handful of clients right there, but as you continue to roll that out, I think it'll be very manageable. For context, I was managing over 75 websites on my hosting and maintenance plan. It was me, my wife, and then JD, my lead designer, would help with some more intensive, complex stuff occasionally, but it was very manageable. So I think anyone who has that fear of like, I don't know if I want to do ongoing support and calls, you're going to get the calls anyway. Make it a nice little service. It really... even already, it's been cool to see that it hasn't overwhelmed you.
And that was okay for you. I guess it's like a gym model. Like everybody's not really going to call on the same day, but
that's a good point.
For all those people, for 75 sites, it was okay.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was great. It was the best part. It was what I sold basically when I sold my business, because my business was mostly a job other than my maintenance plan. It was the one thing that was sellable. Side note, I talk about this in the scaling course when you get there, but I do recommend, like, whether or not you have an intention of selling or pivoting one day, recurring income is the only thing you can sell. Otherwise, you just sell yourself. You can't sell yourself as a job. So, it makes your business way more valuable when you have multiple sources of recurring income in there. But that's an important point too, real quick, with that idea of like the gym thing. Look, we have over 200 members in Pro.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was really nervous initially because everyone has access to me for coaching. And I was like, what if I have 200 people messaging me every day? It's not the case.
Yeah.
I get, half a dozen at most on a daily basis. And usually it's probably the same thing with your clients. You have interactions with somebody back and forth over a few days, and then the next month or 2 months they're implementing. So I actually love that dynamic. It's worked out really well. So all that to say, if I can manage 75 websites and manage over 200 people being able to have direct access to me, everyone here can manage a couple dozen clients on SOS plans.
Yeah. Well said. Well said.
Well, Eleanor, thank you so much for sharing what's working with you. I'm so glad you implemented this based off of our coaching call. I'm so glad you came in and posted your win. It was really cool to see. And I'm starting to share this out as a really good example for those who are not WordPress users, because again, I've heard time and time again over the years and had this mindset myself that you can't build recurring income with Squarespace or Webflow or Wix, but you are the perfect example that you absolutely can. You mix support and optimization with strategy and any marketing services you want, and then you can really create something cool. So I love what you're up to.
Well, thanks. And just one last thing to say again from the group is, one of the things I did was I went to a lot of other designers in the group and looked at how they structured their plans. And even though they were all WordPress, it was still really helpful for me to think, okay, that's how I can structure it. So we're learning from each other. And that's what's so great about the group.
Oh, we can talk about Pro as much as you want. Let's do it. Well, and that's a good point too, though, because even if for anyone who's not a WordPress user, you can absolutely go through my maintenance plan course or any WordPress maintenance plan web designers and look at what they're doing. The reality is the only WordPress specific things are going to be if they're hosting the website, security, and plugin updates. Everything else in those plans is outside of anything that's particular to WordPress. So that's all covered. But one question I was going to have for you was if any clients are questioning support if they're on Squarespace, but I would imagine that's not even an issue if you're backing it up with optimization and strategy.
No.
Have you had any clients be like, well, I'm on Squarespace, why do I need support?
To be honest, half the time they don't understand the difference. No, I mean, I think I laid it out pretty well, what they were getting. And a lot of them had come to me with just little things. So that hasn't been an issue at all.
Cool. Yeah, I didn't think so with the way that's presented. Well, Eleanor, thank you so much for your time. I was going to send people, obviously, we'll have your website and your SOS plan linked in the show notes. Now, your podcast, you have a very unique niche. So I was going to say, I don't even, people are welcome to check out your podcast. But where should people go to connect with you? That's a better question.
They can just go to my website, eleanormayrhofer.com. And I am very active on LinkedIn. So always happy to connect with people on LinkedIn. That's a great place as well.
Yeah, that's my next big thing. I've been tempted for a long time to get on LinkedIn for personal bandwidth reasons. I haven't wanted to get into something new, but I feel like at this point, like enough people have talked me into getting active on LinkedIn.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I love it there. I just think it's a great platform. It's just really a networking platform. Yeah. And it's got a lot of great ways to search and stuff. So
it's what I would do.
Look forward to seeing you there.
It's what I would do. Did you see Alex, one of the new members of Pro, what he just posted?
Yes, recently? I saw that whole thing.
The Sales Navigator thing. I didn't even know that feature was there. So I'm like, I have
Sales Navigator. It's really powerful.
Okay. Good to know. All right. I'm sold. I'll get going on LinkedIn. You sold me. All right, Eleanor. I'll see you over there. Thanks again for your time. Thanks for sharing what's working for you. And I'm excited to see what the SOS plan looks like through the rest of this year and beyond.
Okay. Thanks for having me on.
It's a big one here, friends. I don't know. I mean, I know there's other resources out there about how you can offer ongoing support for Squarespace sites and stuff, but I really am fired up about this idea of an SOS plan. I think I might need to copyright it before somebody steals it because it's genius and it's working. It's also working for other members in Web Designer Pro too, who are not WordPress users. Did you know that my community, Web Designer Pro, is not just a WordPress community? It is agnostic. And this is a biggie because I never thought I would branch away from the WordPress community and get into other communities, but I kind of changed my tune when I started using Circle, which is a self-hosted platform which powers my community. And while I'm a WordPress guy, I am so happy to serve folks like Eleanor and others who are not WordPress designers, because at the core of what Web Designer Pro is, it really is the business of web design. We're getting into things like you just heard, building recurring income and creating plans and packages and offers that suit you, no matter what tools you use. And I have a lot of members actually who are using WordPress alongside things like Showit and Webflow, SquareSpace, etc. So you are welcome. Even if you're not a WordPress user, you are welcome. If you are a WordPress user, yes, of course you're welcome. Some of the resources in there are WordPress specific, but not all of it, not actually near all of it. Most, I'd say like 80% at least of the I'd say like 90% of my courses and most of the content in Pro is agnostic to any builder. It's just good web design business stuff. Is that copy 101 right there or what? So I'd love to see you in Web Designer Pro so you can meet Eleanor and I can coach you directly and help you craft your own plans. Head over to joshhall.co/pro to join us in Pro. And for the show notes, for a full transcription, to go check out Eleanor's plan, again, go to joshhall.co/331 for all the goodness. All right, friends, make sure you're subscribed. And I'm pumped to see you on the next episode because we got some more doozies ahead.